Welcome back to Ben's Book Club. Today, we are diving into the book Multipliers, How the Best Leaders Make Everyone Smarter. We're looking at this totally fascinating idea from researcher Liz Wiseman. Have you ever been in a room where a leader walks in and it just feels like the brain power gets sucked right out of the room? But then, on the flip side, you have those leaders who just seem to amplify everyone's intelligence? Well, in this explainer, we're going to unpack the actual DNA of these two totally different styles. We'll see why the best leaders act as, basically, genius makers, and how you can grab their exact playbook to unlock that hidden potential in your own team.
Okay, let's kick things off with a stat that kind of blew my mind. 1.97x. Wiseman looked at over 150 executives worldwide, and she found that multiplier leaders extract basically twice the capability from their teams compared to the other guys, the diminishers. Think about what that actually means for a second. We're not talking about magically finding a bigger budget or hiring a bunch of new people. It's the exact same team producing wildly different results just based on who is leading them. People working under multipliers are operating at near full capacity, whereas folks under diminishers, they usually feel like they're only giving a tiny fraction of what they're actually capable of.
So here is our roadmap for the explainer. First, we'll look at the two leadership archetypes. Second, the 5 multiplier disciplines. Third, we'll look at the accidental diminisher trap. And finally, becoming a true multiplier. Let's jump right into section 1, the 2 leadership archetypes.
You know, the biggest difference between these two isn't about their IQ or who has the most charisma. It actually comes down to a really fundamental assumption about people. Look at the diminisher on the left. Their baseline assumption is basically, I'm the smartest person in the room, and these people are definitely not going to figure things out without me. And because they believe that, they micromanage, they centralize all the decisions, and they create this massive dependency. Now flip over to the multiplier on the right. Their core assumption is simply, people are smart and they will figure it out. That one tiny psychological shift changes absolutely everything. It turns the leader into a genius maker. It forces people to think harder, take real ownership, and really stretch beyond what they thought they could do.
Which brings us to the actual definition of the multiplier effect. It's getting more capability by using more of the intelligence that is already present in your organization. You know, a massive misconception in the business world is that doing more with less means just grinding your people into the ground until they burn out. But that's absolutely not what multipliers do. They operate on this belief that your organization is sitting on a goldmine of unused brainpower. The multiplier effect is just tapping into that intelligence that's literally sitting right across the desk from it. So how do they actually pull that off? Let's move to section 2, the 5 multiplier disciplines. These 5 disciplines are essentially a playbook of observable behaviors that separate the genius makers from the intelligence strainers. And this is why standard management advice often falls totally flat if a leader is hoarding all the intelligence. Like, you could have a brilliant corporate strategy, but if your leadership style tilts toward the diminisher side, you are putting a hard cap on your team's potential. Let's break these down one by one. Discipline 1 separates the talent magnet from the empire builder. A talent magnet is out there attracting top performers because they look for hidden strengths. They put people in roles that perfectly match their native genius, and then they actively clear out the roadblocks so those people can just shine. They actually use their people fully. An empire builder? Well, they just hoard talent to make their own turf look bigger. They collect brilliant people, sure, but they totally underutilize them. So quick question for you. Do you actively build your people up, or are you kind of just collecting shiny resumes to look good? Now this flows right into discipline 2, which is all about the workplace climate, the liberator versus the tyrant. A liberator creates a space that's intense, yeah, but completely safe. They have sky-high expectations for the work, but they're easy on the people themselves. Mistakes are just seen as part of the learning process. They treat errors like data, not moral failures. On the flip side, a tyrant creates this high-anxiety, fear-driven zone. And the data is super clear on this. Fear only produces quiet compliance. It completely shuts down high-level cognitive thinking and risk-taking. No one's doing their best thinking when they're terrified.
Moving on to discipline 3, it's about how we challenge our teams. This is the challenger versus the know-it-all. A challenger will drop a massive goal on the table, ask some really tough questions, and then here's the key. They step back, they let the team do the heavy lifting. They ignite ambition by pushing people past their perceived limits. The know-it-all, though, well, they just give commands. They want everyone to see how smart they are, so they dictate all the answers. The really tragic part here is that the know-it-all basically restricts the entire organization's growth to whatever the leader already knows. They basically train everyone else to just stop thinking entirely.
Our 4th discipline looks at making decisions, the debate maker versus the decision maker. Multipliers are debate makers. They drive this rigorous, highly collaborative debate before anything is finalized. They separate the actual debate from the final decision, making sure everybody wrestles with the data first. And because everyone's voice is heard, once the call is made, everyone commits. Diminishers act as solo decision makers. They make quick choices, usually behind closed doors with a tiny inner circle. And that leaves the rest of the team totally in the dark, guessing and completely disengaged from the actual execution. The fifth and final discipline is all about ownership. The investor versus the micromanager. An investor hands over full ownership and accountability. They give you the resources, the coaching, the air cover, and then they get out of your way. A micromanager, on the other hand, might kick off a project, but they just can't help themselves. They constantly swoop back in to take control. They get way too lost in the weeds, become a massive bottleneck, and totally stunt the team's ability to operate on their own.
All right, up to this point, it's pretty easy to point fingers, right? We're all picturing that one terrible boss we had a few years ago. But I want to pivot here, because there's a crucial twist that takes some real self-reflection. What if the bad boss is actually you?
Let's dive into Section 3. This is arguably the most powerful idea in Liz Wiseman's entire framework, the accidental diminisher trap.
Here's the reality check. Most bad leaders are not these malicious cartoon villains trying to ruin people's lives. Actually, most of them are highly capable, well-intentioned folks whose noble efforts just accidentally backfire. Let's run through these super common traps really quick. First, you've got the idea fountain. This leader is constantly tossing out creative ideas, thinking they're being inspiring, but really, they're just overwhelming the team with constantly shifting priorities. Then there's the always-on leader. Someone so energetic, they just suck up all the oxygen in the room, leaving zero space for anyone else to talk. You have the pace setter, who sets this crazy standard of execution only they can actually sustain, and they burn everyone else out trying to keep up. The rapid responder is so quick to jump in and fix things that the team never gets to solve their own problems. And the optimist? They're always looking on the bright side, which sounds great, but it unintentionally invalidates the very real stress the team is dealing with.
Now take a look at the hallmark of the rescuer archetype, equating being helpful with doing it myself. I really want you to ask yourself, which of these well-meaning habits might you be guilty of? It's so common. When we see an employee struggling, our gut instinct is to swoop in and save them. We think we're being supportive, but when we rescue them, we're literally robbing them of the learning process. We're teaching them that if things get too tough, someone else will just do it for them. We are diminishing their capability entirely out of sheer kindness. So if we realize we're accidentally doing this stuff, how do we fix it? That brings us to our final phase, Section 4, becoming a true multiplier. I want to reassure you right now, being a multiplier is not some fixed personality trait you have to be born with. It is an intentional choice, and it's built on completely learnable behaviors. So here are 4 actionable challenges you can try this week to start shaking off those diminisher habits. Step 1, audit your last 3 meetings. Really think about it. How much of the talking did you do versus your team? Step 2, run a structured debate. Pick just one upcoming decision, explicitly ask for dissenting views, and just watch how much the quality of the team's thinking improves. Step 3, give a stretch assignment. Find someone, hand them a challenge that's just a little bit outside their comfort zone, offer them support, but absolutely refuse to do the work for them. And Step 4, conduct a talent inventory. Look closely at your team. Find one person whose native genius isn't being fully used right now, and redesign a piece of their role to leverage that hidden strength. And hey, even if you aren't in a formal management role right now, you can still practice this stuff from literally any seat in the organization. Try these rapid-fire tactics. First, make it a personal rule to ask more questions than you give answers. Next, give away the pen. If you're leading a whiteboard session, literally hand the marker to someone else and let them drive. Play your peers in their genius zone by going to them for their specific strengths. And finally, create small zones of autonomy in your own work where you can exercise your full capability. It proves your value and quietly expands your scope.
I want to leave you with this one final, pretty provocative thought to chew on today. Where are you currently multiplying the intelligence of the people around you, and where might you be accidentally diminishing it? It is a tough question for sure, but answering it is the very first step to becoming the kind of leader who makes everyone around them smarter. Think on that, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.